Hello and welcome to Digital Advertising Selling Strategies. This is Spider Graham, Chief Creative Technologist at Certified Sales Training, and I wanted to take a few minutes today to share with you the 5 rules for selling and managing successful digital advertising campaigns. If you work in sales and media, you need to understand how to do a better job of managing the advertisers that you have to deal with on a regular basis. By the way, these rules don't only apply to the digital realm, but they can also apply to offline. So there are a number of different points we want to make. First thing we want to talk about is the fact that there's a real link between your success and the success of your advertisers. Now, you already know this. The challenge, of course, is that you're going to be judged. And of course, your future earnings potential is going to be affected by the outcome of whatever your advertisers end up doing. The challenge here, of course, is that success in a campaign is really based upon your advertisers' definition of success. And of course, it's based upon their definition of who the audience they're trying to reach is, as well as the creative they produce, or the agency they're working with produces, and the websites they run their campaigns on. This means that you don't have a lot of control over the outcome unless somehow you're involved in the decision process as to what success looks like. So the first question I would ask you is there a way that you can share your insights, your understanding of the industry, your experiences to help the advertiser to do a better job of defining what success looks for them? We'll talk more about this in a moment. The challenge that a lot of sales reps are put in currently is that their roles are changing. They're not just a salesperson. It's not just someone who says, hey, we have inventory and media that we can sell on a website or through a network. Would you like to buy some impressions? Instead, advertisers are looking for solutions. They're looking for people who can help them to reach the right people with the right message at the right time and for the best price. So a lot of the time, the role of the sales rep is also the role of being an advisor and a consultant. Because in the long run, what you really are doing is you are providing solutions. And you are creating new opportunities for advertisers, better ways for them to reach the right people with the right message. You're trying to do, of course, whatever you can to keep them satisfied. And you're trying to create opportunities as a publisher and as a salesperson to be able to upsell them, to provide them with value adds in the future that are significant but also meaningful to them. In short, you end up becoming a business partner to the advertisers that you work with. And that's not a bad place to be, by the way. And advertisers are really people who are looking for a solution to a problem. So they say, well, I have a problem. And of course, you're in a perfect place to be able to say, we are a solutions provider, because that's what publishers really are. You need to get a message in front of people. We have ways of getting that message in front of the people that you're trying to reach. So let's talk and see what we can do to work together. The challenge that you run into is that advertisers don't always know what they're doing. Now, a lot of times they'll have budgets to work with, and they have people who can put together advertising, but they don't necessarily understand the parameters of digital advertising or even trying to reach a target audience. So sometimes they'll fake it until they make it, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing, but they're also not going to raise their hand and tell you, I don't know what I'm doing. So sometimes you can really take advantage of this by coming in and saying, hey, let me help you out anyway. I know you already know what you're doing, but let me do what I can to make things even better for you. Can I help you with the creative? Can I talk about the process? Can we do a better job of identifying who your target audience is? Anything that you can do to help them to satisfy their needs and help them better define what the parameters for campaign success look like also means that you have more control over reaching that conclusion. So once again, a happy advertiser is an advertiser that comes back and does business with you in the future. An unhappy advertiser, unfortunately, is the opposite. So you want to make sure that you can work with the advertisers to help them to better understand how they can help themselves. Now, one of the things I think is very, very important, especially when we're talking about digital advertising, is to kind of just remove from their minds this idea that somehow if you just put campaigns online, it's like magic and everything just falls into place. If all you need is a Twitter feed, all you need to have is a Facebook page, and everything will be perfect. What? Pinterest? Get on Pinterest. You know, that's the problem. They're getting a lot of messages from a lot of different angles saying, this is the absolute best way to reach the audience you're trying to reach. If you do this one thing, you'll be swimming through huge piles of cash. Sounds fantastic. Generally doesn't bear out. So what they need to do is get a better sense of what is real. It's like anything else. Advertising and marketing online, digital or otherwise, is challenging. It's not easy, and it has to be refined and optimized all along the way. So we have some fantastic tools and ways of measuring outcomes that can really help us get there. But there's no one thing that any advertiser can do that will suddenly just be the magic bullet that will pull it all together. And so you need to be there to be able to help them and guide them and help them understand what the parameters are and what they really can accomplish. If an advertiser comes to you with the expectation that if they run a campaign on one of your websites, they're going to end up getting a 6% click-through rate, and by the way, I've run into this in the real world, you need to be there to set their expectations well within the range of normal. Okay, now they may do better than average, which is something you want them to be able to do, but they have to understand what average looks like. So help them set realistic campaign expectations. Don't let them go into something thinking, I'm going to get so many people who are going to click through, everyone's going to love us, all we need to do is put up this ad on a website and we're going to have so much traffic coming to a landing page, we're not going to know how to handle all of it. Good problems to have, but generally this is not what's going to happen. Also, help them get a better sense of how they're making money with their marketing. They're spending a certain amount of money to try to reach people. How are they going to measure what the return on investment is for the money they're spending? Now, we'll talk about this in a few minutes. There are some different approaches, obviously, depending on what we're doing. But if you can find a way for them to get a better sense of what the outcome of a campaign looks like, or what it can look like, and what that means from a dollar and cent standpoint, then you might help them to do a better job of planning ahead. And by the way, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to not allow them to base campaign success purely on click-through rates. Now, we see this all the time. People are always, well, we want to get a high click-through rate. Well, yeah, we all want to get a high click-through rate, but that is not where the magic is. That's not where we really want to go. And a lot of times I find as a salesperson, what you really want to be able to do is when you listen to your clients laying out some of their campaign goals, is just be willing to ask them why. Now, I've had this conversation many, many times over the years in which a client will say, we want to drive traffic to a landing page. And I'll say, okay, let me ask you this. Why? And sometimes you're met with blank silence because they don't necessarily know. One of my favorite answers personally was a woman who, after a long pause, said, because I thought we were supposed to. You have to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish as an advertiser. You need to be able to understand what it is the end game looks like. The reality is that there's no single answer that we can use to identify what the outcome of a campaign should be. It's going to vary. It's going to depend upon what it is that the advertiser really wants to accomplish. But that's what you want to dig for. You want to be able to ask them why to get down to the real reasons. So when an advertiser says, our goal is to drive traffic, you ask them why. Get them to think about what it is they really want to do. Okay, you want to drive traffic to a landing page. That's fine. But what is it you want them to do once they arrive at the landing page? That's really what you're trying to accomplish. It's not just, we had someone come to the landing page, we're victorious. We had someone come to the landing page, and then they did what we really wanted them to do. So dig down a little deeper and try to find out what the real goal is. So once you can establish what the real goal is, and it's usually based upon some sort of consumer action. We want them to remember our brand. We want them to sign up for our newsletter. We want them to buy our product. Whatever it is, there's something that's real behind the initial push to drive traffic. And even then, don't give up on them. Be more relentless and say, okay, and then what happens? What do you do after that? What are we really trying to accomplish? And help them get a firm understanding in their own minds of what they really want the campaign to accomplish. Help them plan for campaign success. Now, sometimes it's something simple. It's just we want to collect data. We want to get some email addresses or maybe get a mailing address. We want to be able to have someone who signs up for a free sample. We want someone who's willing to print out a coupon so we can use that in the future. We want some sort of acquisition. Acquisition could be anything. We got somebody to come in here and go visit this page. Okay, there's acquisition. As long as we can define what these goals are and what they really mean and what the significance is to the bottom line and to the campaign, we're in good shape. Of course, once again, if you can get the advertiser to understand what they're really trying to accomplish and help them get there, then the campaign has a much better chance of being successful. Once that happens, you have a much better chance of being successful. Now, most important thing I think we have here is rule number 3, and that is nothing, absolutely nothing is more important than conversion. Now, what is conversion? Well, conversion is up to the advertiser. It's really a point at which something happens. So whether it's a coupon redemption or an increase in the circulation numbers for a magazine, or the number of people who view a landing page or a website, or the number of people who download things, even a click-through can be a point of conversion. But there are all these different things that we can measure, and we need to be able to identify what they are, because everything leads back to the idea that this thing, whatever it is, if we accomplish it, is our indicator of campaign success. So whether it's sales, whether it's acquisitions, whether it's collecting data, it's entirely up to the advertiser. But they need to be able to go in there and understand, this is our goal. This is what we're trying to accomplish. If we can do this, hooray, campaign is good. If we can't do this, we need to figure out why it's not working and come back around and figure out a way to make it work. Now, it's also incredibly important to think about what the conversion goals are and bypass the whole idea, once again, of click-through rates. Now, on this chart, we could say we have 6 different sites that are vying for the impression revenue that's coming out of this advertiser. But everyone wants to sell them advertising. And let's say that the first month the advertiser goes out and they distribute their budget across all these different sites. And at the end of 30 days, they say, we want reports. We want to know how all of our campaigns did. And they can look at this and say, okay, well, we got a high click-through rate on site A. Site D, really high click-through rate. Site B, a very low click-through rate. So we're thinking we want to make sure we spend our money wisely, so we're going to take site B out of the media buy. Now, that's unfortunate if you're the owner of site B, obviously. But the problem with this approach is there's a huge fallacy here. And the fallacy is we're looking at click-through rates to determine whether or not the campaign was successful. Well, let's just say we put some real numbers behind this, and we say instead, why don't we look at what the conversion rates are? And we find that site A had a 12% conversion. So all that traffic that came in, 12% of those did what it is the advertiser wanted them to do. And if we look at site B, it had a 30% conversion rate. Now, this is not uncommon, by the way. We might have a site that is very specialized, very focused, trade heavy. We're not going to get a lot of traffic, but the traffic we do get is more qualified. And so sometimes what you'll have is low click-through, but high conversion, because the people who are showing up are the people who care. They're the people who can make the decisions and do what it is you want them to do. And we can look at things like site D here and say, okay, well, we had a high click-through rate, but we had a low conversion rate. And when you add this new understanding in, you start looking at this instead, and you say, well, actually, if we look at this, site B is actually pretty good. Site B and site D are almost on par for the value that they bring. So whereas we were willing to throw site B away before, now we're looking and say this is actually one of the top performers. In this case, site C is kind of mediocre. It's got a low click-through rate as well as a low conversion rate, and that's probably the one we should lose. So these are the things you should be able to bring to your customers, your advertisers, and explain to them that it's not about click-through, it's about what happens after click-through that we really need to focus on. I think it's also important to understand that different campaigns are going to require different things that we measure and look at from a goal standpoint. Now, for example, we have 2 fundamental areas of marketing that we deal with. One is branding, and the other is direct response. Now, branding is a fairly straightforward approach. Branding is really about how can I get the idea of my brand, my product, my service, or whatever it is, whatever message I want to share with you, into your head as a consumer. So that the next time you're in a supermarket, or you see us on TV, or you see us online, or whatever it is, there's a certain level of recognition and understanding of the value that we bring to the table. Now, that's an easy enough concept to wrap your mind around. It's just not real easy to execute. On the other side, direct response is really based upon what can I do to get you to take a certain action. Direct response is really just about that. It's about persuading a consumer to do something. And so we see this all the time in television ads that say, here's a phone number, call 1-800, blah, blah, blah. Get the top songs of the 70s sent to you overnight. That's the kind of thing that we're measuring. We want you to do something. With digital advertising, we see it all over the place as well. Click here on this ad and do something. Let us provide you with a better understanding of what we can do. If you give us your email address, we'll send you this fantastic white paper or our brochure, or download this fantastic thing that you can play with widget, or here's an application. So we're looking at the direct response mechanisms and the branding mechanisms, but we look at them differently. For example, the real challenge when we put a message out in front of an audience is having that message resonate with that audience. Now, when we talk about branding, if I were to show you an ad that you've never seen before for a product that you were totally unfamiliar with, your approach might be, well, don't really know anything about it, don't really care, not really paying attention. But if I show that over and over and over again to you over time, your understanding of that brand is going to increase. Now, I'm not going to say that just because I showed you something over and over again that suddenly it's relevant and it's a product or a service that you really want or need. But I am saying that from an awareness standpoint, you're going to be more aware of that brand the more I show it to you. So branding increases the more I show you an ad. Now on the other side, when we talk about direct response is really about getting a consumer to do something on purpose. If I show you an ad, and the first time you see the ad, your thought is, this is not important, this is not relevant, this isn't something for me, I'm not going to do it. Then if I show you the ad over and over and over again, the chances of you taking action actually decline. It wasn't relevant the first time, it's probably not more relevant the fifth time. So as a result, we get a decline. The reason I bring this up is because sometimes advertisers will try to use a single universal metric to determine campaign success. And the point I want to make here is that a branding campaign success and a direct response campaign success are based upon two completely different mechanisms. It's not about reach and frequency for direct response, whereas for branding it works perfectly. Direct response is more about making sure that not everyone sees the same message, but that the right people see the message, the right people being those who are going to want to take advantage of it and increase the overall appeal and output of the campaign. We also need to understand when we're building any kind of campaign goals, we have to identify what the message is. What information is being passed from the ad unit to the consumer? What is it that you want to get in their head, new understanding, new perspective, etc., that they may not have currently? And who are you as a consumer? Who is the target audience that this advertiser wants to talk to? And what is it they want them to do? How do they want them to respond? And once they've done all this, is there a way that we can measure whether the consumers did what we wanted them to do as a result of the interaction they had with these ads? And finally, it's probably really important for sales reps as well as advertisers to understand that you're not going to nail the target dead center on your first try. It doesn't happen. Now, in the past, with a lot of traditional media, it wasn't a big issue because we had no way of measuring whether you missed the target or not. You know, we could figure out what the revenue streams looked like, and maybe a campaign was better or not better. The challenge is that in any realistic pursuit, we do not hit the target dead center the first time. We can take very smart people and very good planning and put it all together, and we're still going to run into problems. But we can measure digital media. We can measure the outcome of campaigns and individual events and points of interaction between consumers and ads. And this is really a blessing because what it allows us to do is go in there and take a peek and see how are we doing. Okay? If we don't measure it, we can't see what's wrong. And if we don't know what's wrong, we can't improve upon it. But as we go in and say, this isn't working, what can we do to make it better? We're going to have an evolution of understanding. We're going to be able to take this understanding and this experience over time and do a much better job of looking at campaigns and saying, okay, I can tell you right now this campaign is not going to perform as well as you want it to, and here is why. So if we change this and we change this and we change this, we're going to increase the odds that this campaign is going to be really successful for you. Would you like to do that, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser? And also, you need to make sure that this whole optimization approach is built into all of the digital campaigns. Once again, it's not just a matter of coming in and saying, we're going to sell you impressions on a website or a network. You want to be able to say, we're going to sell you impressions, absolutely, but we're also going to come back to you and we're going to say, campaign is underperforming. Here are some suggestions on things you can do to make it perform better. Because guess what? As a sales rep, you're not the only person who wants this campaign to succeed. It's also important to be able to lay down what we call campaign benchmarks. And a benchmark is really just a starting point. It allows us to go in there and say, okay, here's a line in the sand. We're going to run our first campaign. Now, is this campaign performing well or not performing well? Well, we have no way of knowing because we have nothing to compare it against. So if we run a campaign and we say, okay, we're going to measure what the conversion rate is, we want people to download a widget, well, that gives us an understanding of how we can do. And if we find out that 3% of the people who interacted with the ad downloaded the widget, we say, okay, 3%. Is that good? Is that bad? We don't know until we run the next campaign. Now we have something to aim for. We actually want to go higher than 3% if we're doing it right. So what can we do to tweak the campaign and the parameters of the campaign to get a better understanding of what went right and what maybe needs improvement? Maybe we can get a 4% increase or a 5% increase. That's the kind of thing we want to look for. We don't want to base anything that we do on a single campaign event because it's really a fallacy. It doesn't give us much to work from. And we can't say, wow, this campaign was a success because we really don't know if there's a way we could make it even better. So we want to make sure that we can measure if campaigns work. And we have to go in there and identify what the goals are. We have to identify what can be measured and what it means when we measure it. We have to look at the previous benchmarks that we've used for similar campaigns and also be able to test it. We have to test and test and test some more, and we can optimize. And as a result, we can get a better sense of what's working and what's not. So that's all I really have for you today. So as a sales rep, you have a lot that's already on your plate, but I encourage you to have some good conversations with your advertisers. Help them to do a better job of understanding what the parameters are, what they should be measuring, what they need to do a better job. And in an upcoming presentation, I'll talk about the creative process. The creative process, of course, is incredibly important here because bad creative is going to lead to bad campaign results. The problem is that an advertising rep, you don't always get a chance to weigh in on the quality of the creative itself. But we'll talk a little bit about things that you might be able to approach and how you can do a better job of managing the overall campaign and manage your own success in the future. This is Spider Graham. Thanks so much for your time. Feel free to give us a call at 855-367-8200, or you can visit us online at www.certifiedsalestraining.com.